it'll look absolutely fine. So I don't know what it must be something to do with Stornoway.
All right.
No, that's fine. But Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm glad you made a little bit of time out of your day off actually to come on and speak to myself about all things music. Before we get started though, how are you actually doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine, thanks. Doing great. As my day off, I ended up having to rush into work. That's why I was fashionably late for the call.
There you go. There you go. You must be a good man going in on your day off then.
I'm the manager, so I've got no choice.
Oh, well, okay. We'll leave it at that then. But what I like to do, Kevin, with the podcast, learn a bit about yourself. We'll talk about all things music. We'll talk about the band, of course, and everything else that fits in between. But what I like to do with the guests is go back to the very beginning. So for yourself, where are you originally from?
Stornoway.
Stornoway. And
yeah.
It's probably going to be a silly question, but I'm assuming you were exposed to a lot of music from a young age?
Yeah, it was kind of, in school, AC/DC was the thing to get into in school. It was in the 80s. So that's kind of what opened my ears up, I suppose. And then I used to bash on you'd get like Dandy and Beano annuals for Christmas. So that and a pair of chopsticks, and that's what started my drumming journey.
Well, I was going to ask you, because a lot of people initially they'll get exposure to music from like their parents or maybe like siblings or that. And it's normally, what I've found with most people is when they're probably starting high school, maybe 11, 12 years of age, they start to discover these new bands for themselves that's music for themselves. So who were some of the bands, you've mentioned AC/DC, who were some of the bands that you were discovering for yourself?
Well, I think the very first band I ever discovered was Status Quo. And my dad had Status Quo records. So used to scratch the living daylights out of them on him. And I think Down Down was the song that really kind of opened me up to kind of heavier music, and then everyone in school was into kind of AC/DC. It was the done thing, and then I kind of progressed from there into Iron Maiden and stuff like that, and it was all swapping tapes, and your friends would make you a tape and it'd have all this music on it, and you're just like, oh wow. So it was that was it.
You're mentioning Status Quo, but I mean, you look at them now and you think they're quite sort of almost pop friendly, but they're still a band. It's still 4 or 5 musicians creating music, so you can understand why listening to them you would then progress on to maybe AC/DC, and then you can see Iron Maiden. It's a clear sort of path that you saw there. I actually had, do you know, well, I'm assuming you'll probably know Wee Studio in Stornoway?
Oh, very well. Yes, very well, Keith.
Yeah, so I had Keith was on the podcast about 3 episodes ago, and he was saying to me that, because Keith's, I think he said he was late 30s, early 40s, something like that. So I'm in my 40s, and he was saying, back when you were young, I think there was only like a Woolworths that was the one that you would get your music from. So if it wasn't there, then you struggled to get music, because obviously you didn't have the internet back then. It's so easy nowadays to access.
There was another shop as well called McKeever and Dart, and they'd order stuff in for you. So the first single I ever bought was in McKeever and Dart, and oh God, what was it? Adamant, Prince Charming.
Was that cassette tape?
7-inch.
Right, okay.
So I was just like totally blown away. So I was born 1975, so that was what, 81 or 82. So that kind of the first thing I'd ever bought, and just like holding the single cover and kind of and listening to it a million times, and then gradually then when I was a wee bit older, I think Who Made Who was the first album I ever bought, and with my own money, and it was just like you just sit there on the floor listening to the record and reading all the lyrics and all the thanks and this, that, and the next thing. But we had a lot of like you get all these offers in magazines that you could join and get 3 records free if you join for a year or whatever. So there was a lot of that going on in school as well. So people would join up these things, get records, and swap them.
It's funny, I've spoke with people about this because nowadays music it's so easily accessible. You know, you've got your phone in your pocket and you've got access to music from all over the world, unlimited amounts of music. But there's something special. You'll remember, because you're of a similar age to myself, that you know you might have only had 8 albums when you were growing up, or 10 albums, but you worshipped them. You studied those albums. You knew them inside out. You knew every song. You knew all the lyrics. You know, it's almost like, I don't know if music's studied as much nowadays like that, because it's so easily accessible. You just move on to the next song, whereas you didn't have that choice back then. So you really, the music that you did have, you knew every single detail of it.
Yeah, it exactly that. Music's a lot more disposable nowadays. And like when you were young, you know, I still know everything that I listen to inside and out. You know what I mean? Back from when I was a teenager and playing along to records in my bedroom, and you know absolutely every corner of every album. Whereas now, if you listen to it on your phone, or a younger generation, it's boom, it's gone a week later, and there's another song there, and so on, so on, so on, so on.
It's funny that you say that, because I remember do you remember Metallica's Black Album?
Yes.
So I had that on a copy of it on cassette tape, and the cassette tape wasn't long enough for the album. So every time it got to the 5th or 6th track, I still to this day, whenever I hear it, I remember the point that the tape cut off because it ran out of tape. Then you had to obviously turn it over to hear the rest of it.
Yeah.
The struggles that younger people will never know. But
absolutely.
Am I right in saying, Kevin, you're the drummer?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Yeah. So, what age did you get into the drums, and why was it the drums? Why was it not the guitar or the vocals or something else? Why was it the drums?
It was a twist of fate that stuck with me for my whole life. I was kind of when we went to high school. We were in a rural school, so when we went to high school, it was in Stornoway, and I'm from a village about 20 minutes outside of Stornoway. So that was the big thing then. That's the big school. And one of the classes was group music making, which we had never had before. You got a keyboard in music and you were left to play about with it, and that was it. So I really wanted to play the bass, and one of my friends had started playing the bass, and I was like, I just wanted to be like him. And when it came to picking, there was like 10 people in our class, and they were putting people in pairs. So it was like 2 get to play guitar, 2 get to play bass, so on, so on, so on. And I was too shy to put my hand up to like for the bass guitar. Yeah. And then all that was left was drums and keyboard. So one other guy could play the drums. So he says, so there's 1 slot there, or 2 for the keyboard. And so I was like, there's no way I'm playing keyboard. So I put my hand up, and he put names in a hat, and my name got pulled out, and that's what changed my life from then on in. So default.
See, learning the drums when you were younger, who were some of your influences for the actual drums themselves, and have they changed over the years, or is it still the same people?
Yes and no. It's kind of, today it's so much, you just go onto YouTube and you just want to throw your sticks away. Like, I could never do, you know what I mean? Well, and we never had that. But I kind of, listening to AC/DC, it gives you a solid foundation, I would say. And, you know, as a gigging drummer, you know, you can do all flash fancy stuff if you want, but it's that simple 2 and 4 that gets you paid, you know. And and then I kind of got into Iron Maiden, which was a lot more challenging, and so Nico McLean, Full Rudd, Metallica, and Megadeth. I was more Megadeth than Metallica,
Yeah.
so Nick Menza was huge, and then I discovered Slayer, and that was, and I've never been the same since. So Dave Lombardo is just like boom.
It's funny that you mentioned those two names, because see the amount of times, I mean, you'll not find a metal band, a rock band, that Dave Lombardo is not an influence to the drummer. I mean, there's no denying the man's talent, but whenever you hear him in an interview, he says exactly what you just said there, which is, his double bass playing on the drums is unbelievable. But I mean, he's the whole package. He's got something special about him. But he will tell you, if you want to play the drums good, go and learn Phil Rudd. The very basic stuff. If you can get that mastered, you can then progress, if you wish to do so, on to other things. But you need to get the basics down, and you need to get them down correctly. And it's not as easy as it looks.
Oh, tell me about it. Still learning. 40 years every day. But yeah, he's just incredible, and it's so many different genres of music that he's played in. He's got his own experimental stuff, and his like Cuban kind of beats, and he's got art stuff, and he's just an all-round amazing drummer. I aspire to be like him. I'll never reach it, but that's my hero.
Because he is known, especially for Slayer, a heavy metal thrash band, but he does play a lot of different styles. It's the same as Eloy Casagrande, that's currently in Slipknot, that was previously in Sepultura. That guy can play any style, although he's known for metal. You could sit him in any band with any set of musicians, and it would work. And it's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
I know. But talking about the Broken Ravens, when did the band first start? When did they come about?
End of 2011, beginning of 2012. And we had all been in millions of bands before, but never in a band together. And we were all playing the pub circuit. And some of us had played kind of semi-professionally, if you do want to call it that. Yeah. And we just put a band together. It was our old singer, Bugsy, and he wanted a band to play rock stuff. And if we never played a gig, that was fine. Just 4 guys in a room jamming and just take it from there. And playing songs like Sabbath and Sensational Alex Harvey Band and Thin Lizzy and old cool rock stuff like that. And then it just kind of progressed from there.
Cool. And so obviously the band's been going for a while then. So talking about the actual songwriting, recording, all that kind of thing, for the band, and the great thing is there's no right or wrong answer, because it is different for each musician, each band approaches it slightly different. But for yourselves, what is the songwriting process for the band?
It's as old school as ever. We jam, It's like that episode in the Wonder Years. So it's when they do a band and they go, let's jam, and they just make a noise, and you'll get a riff or you'll get a drum lick or something, and then we all contribute to how that kind of manifests itself into a song eventually. So,
would you say most songs then are born through a jam session, rather than it being someone going away, writing the skeleton of a song and bringing it to the band? Is it more like everything?
We do that. Yeah, we do that as well. And like Gordon, our singer, he plays guitar on that as well. So he's taken a couple of songs to us that are just like a skeleton, and it's all done acoustically. And then Derek and Thrash will absolutely butcher it so that he can't recognise it. He's like, wow, I can't believe that's my song. But it's very collaborative. and we work all the nuts and bolts out in Shabby Road, our studio, and my shed basically,
Yeah.
and then Eric's got his own wee kind of home recording kit, so we'll demo it there, and then it's usually Keith we go to record.
Right. And before we talk about that, so Gordon is on vocals. Is Gordon the one?
Yes.
Is he the only one writing the lyrics?
No, that's collaborative as well. So
Right. That's unusual, but not in a bad way. It's just sometimes singers are very protective of the vocal part. They don't like others contributing, but is it more a band effort for yourself?
I think everything's a band effort, and that's the best part. Every band I've ever been in, it's always been led by somebody. Whereas in this band, it's all for one and one for all, and there's no egos, and there's no. I've been playing guitar 20 years. You can't tell me to change a chord or whatever. It's just everything's for the better of whatever we're working on, and everybody's cool with that.
Yeah. It's interesting trying to figure out what makes a band work, and not in terms of success, but in terms of the band working together as a band. And what you just said there, ego can destroy a band quicker than anything. I've seen it a million times, and it's if you can get 4 or 5 guys together that they're there to make some good music, and everybody contributing knows that they will make the song sound better, rather than it being someone showboating, wanting the spotlight.
Oh, I mean, I've had like some of the last batch of songs have really kind of pushed us to in a performance level, because it was totally out with our wheelhouse. It's like we really had to put the practice in to get to a point where we could play the songs live, which is great. It's what you want. You're pushing yourself as a musician. But, like Derek is a phenomenal drummer, and as well as an amazing guitarist. And he'll say, right, I'm going to show you this. Can you try and do this? And he's got a whole Bonham style, which I don't, right? And it's that happy medium. But I would never not let Derek say, like, who are you to show me how to play the drums? You stick to your instrument. And the Lotto, our bass player, he writes a lot of songs, and he writes a lot of melodies as well, like the lyrics. And him and Gordon work together to make what's best. And yeah, if you had egos, it would never work anywhere near as well as it does.
Now, you're obviously saying for the recording process, for the professional recording, you go off to wee studio. You've got Keith there behind the desk. It's funny because I spoke to Keith for a good wee while, and you always think Stornoway that it's just going to be like traditional music coming out. You don't think there's going to be like metal bands, but for obviously yourselves in wee studio, what is the recording process for the band? How do you like to record?
Get as well rehearsed as possible before we go in. So we're playing the songs backwards in our sleep, kind of, so we're not wasting any time. And then if there are problem parts, then Keith, because his genre's not really rock and metal, it's great to have an objective opinion, that's a knowledgeable objective opinion, to say, right, then we've hit this kind of impasse, and he'll help guide us around that. Maybe something that we don't think of. And so it's very collaborative with Keith as well, but we try to get in and out as quickly as we possibly can.
No, it's cool. I had a wee listen to the latest single that you sent across, Death Findeth All. And so I like all styles of music, but I'm a metal rock guy. So when I'm listening to it, I'm hearing, the 4 bands that I was hearing was Machine Head, Sepultura, Trivium, and Paradise Lost. Does that kind of ring any bells for yourself?
2 out of 5 of us would be very happy with that. Especially the Paradise Lost and Machine Head. Lotto's a huge Paradise Lost fan, and Gordon's a huge Machine Head fan. It's kind of, we're quite, there's like a mastodon type progginess in there somewhere. In quite a lot of our songs, they're not very, verse chorus, verse chorus, verse chorus kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's a great comparison. I'm happy with that.
What I liked about the song was, see when it started, like the intro, it gave the guitars obviously doing the guitar riff, it gave them a chance to shine. But when you got to the actual singing part, it's almost like the instruments pulled back because the vocals were the main thing during that point, and the instruments were coming in and out when required. That's what I sometimes think. It's like you can do too much on a song that it sounds a bit too messy. Whereas I liked the dynamics of the song.
Oh, great! And that all comes from how it was mixed, and we had such a job getting these songs mixed. Keith's really really busy, and
Yeah,
we were given a few different people by a few friends. But we were in LA last year for a tour, and we met up with this guy who he works with. Weirdly enough, Robbie Williams, Billy Joel, and but other metal bands like Architects and that. So he mixed it for us, and he really does know his stuff. It was like when he played us the first mix back, we were all kind of like, wow. I was like, we'll never be able to play it like that. But he just, yeah, that's where the mixing comes in. It's so important.
yeah. It's funny because for years I've got a wee, similar to yourself probably. It's a wee man cave at the side of the house. It's got all my music up in it, and I could record for days on end. But I've came to the realization that I'm not a mixer. And I finally, a couple of years ago, I bit the bullet and decided to send the finished recorded track off to someone else. And I trusted someone else with a fresh pair of ears to mix it. And when they came back, it was like night and day. It was money so well spent trusting someone else to do the mix. And it makes all the difference.
Oh, it absolutely does. I mean, we were like, we had spent so long trying to get the right person to mix it,
Yeah,
and the mixes we were getting back just weren't anywhere near what we expected. And Derek had kind of already mixed the demos to a point that when we recorded the songs, we had a rough starting point of how we imagined them to sound once they were done, sort of thing. And Derek and Thrash are really good at they've got an ear for that.
yeah.
So, but when we got Justin, he's just knew exactly. We didn't have to tell him anything. He knew exactly where everything should be, how it should sound, and he did that with the vocals as well to make sure that they popped and they're not getting lost in the wash of guitars or drums or stuff like that. I think that's
So,
another thing that egos can destroy as well. Is like
yeah,
when you give when you're giving a song to someone to mix, they might come back with things that you're not going to like. Like, oh, you've got this whole big drum part here. Don't need it. We'll keep this or we'll do that instead. So you have to be very open and willing to make. Depends how you see it, as a sacrifice, or is it? It's at the end of the day, if it's going to make the song sound better, then it's totally worth doing.
100%, 100%. So Kevin, we're obviously pretty early on in 2025. So what's the plans for the rest of the year?
Well, we're playing in Glasgow in a couple of weeks' time. We're in Ivory Blacks on the 7th of February. And then we've got
Yep.
our friends called Juliet's Not Dead. They used to be called Twister. So we're going down to Blackpool with them after that to play a couple of shows there. And we're working on our next single to come out. And we've got gigs in the pipeline. Most of our gigs are abroad. It's so hard to get gigs in Britain, that especially for a metal band, and we seem to have like good followings. Like we've been to LA 3 or 4 times now, and
Yep.
we've played all the big venues, and we've got you can totally see how a band could organically grow. You know how you start in a small venue and work your way up, and you're building fans up. You can actually see that happen, like
Yeah.
there.
Right.
So
So
I don't know.
you're going to be busy with music anyway. That's the main thing. But
Yeah.
before we finish things, because we've been obviously talking for all any musicians watching, lots of technical chit chat. But I like to end things with some fun questions for yourself just before you go. So, if you could imagine, if you could go back in time, anywhere in the world, a big gig or a small gig, what's the one concert that you wish that you could have attended?
Oh, I said AC/DC in Apollo in Glasgow with Bon Scott's last gig.
Oh yeah, that would have been cool. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
Well, so another question then. As you know, thousands and thousands of songs have been written and recorded across the years. What's the one song that you wish that you could have been in the recording studio to witness the band actually record it?
I don't know. It's like there's millions. I wish I could have seen Slayer record Rain and Blood, because
Right.
that was such a landmark album, and it's only 28 minutes.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been there very long, but to see that unfold and how it was put together, and just the musicianship in that alone would have blow your mind, you know.
It was probably 28 minutes long because Dave Lombardo got tired.
Yeah, run out of coffee.
Yeah. Right. When I ask you this next question, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? So, what's your favourite album cover?
Power Slave, Iron Maiden.
Oh, brilliant choice. Great choice. And this next question, it might put one of your band members in a bad light. Imagine that you've got a dead body in the boot of your car. 3 o'clock in the morning, you need to dispose of this body, no questions asked. Which band member are you phoning to help you, and why?
Well, all of them would help me, I know that for a fact. But Derek, he's got the darkest edge to him. he's the one with the most secret. I reckon he'd be the guy to go to in a time of need.
Fine then. And the last question for yourself, Mount Rushmore, who's the 4 bands or musicians for yourself that you just see as perfection?
I'd have to go with drummers. And so I would put Dave Lombardo first, definitely. And then John Tempesta from White Zombie. I've actually met him a few times. I've been out with him. He's a totally underrated drummer. He's incredible. He's with the Cult just now. Who else? John Bonham, for obvious reasons.
Yep.
And really controversial, but I'd put Lars Ulrich there.
What was that?
It's very controversial, but I'd put Lars Ulrich up there.
There's no denying he's not been in the game for this long if he's not doing something right.
Hey, how many other drummers can you tell that they're playing? You know, like, so you listen, how many people picked up a set of sticks after listening to one?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or got an extra bass drum or a double bass drum pedal to try. And the first thing anyone does when they see a double bass kit, and I've been playing double bass since I was like 13, right? The first thing anyone does, like, oh, give us a shot of that, and they try and do the bit in one, the kind of double kick bit. I can do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just he's done so much for heavy metal drummers, and when you look at Metallica, they're like you said, they're here for a reason. They've got such a long career, and their 4 or 5 albums are incredible. You know,
I mean, he's a very, very big target, and he's made mistakes along the way. But I think his achievements far outweigh any mistakes that he's made, or people arguing that he's not as good live now or that. Well, there's touring the world, selling out every single venue, so I think he's doing not too bad.
Well, a very good friend of ours is his lawyer in the States, and I've been friends with her for 20 years now, and she's always said he's just, as a drummer, yes, they're brilliant and they've done this, that, and next thing, but it's his brain that drives the band forward. And so many different avenues, and like the not just merchandising, but they have their own whiskey. They've got really distinctive logo that everybody, the whole world knows, and it's him. He's the driving force behind it. He's the brains behind it.
I think he would actually make a very good producer, because he can also do that thing where he can go through guitar riff tapes and say, try doing that riff 1 with riff 2 over here, and try joining those together. Yeah. A lot of their songs wouldn't be what they were if it wasn't for Lars putting them together.
Oh, absolutely. And and his drumming on the first, 4 or 5 albums it was what it needed to be. And how many other drummers can say that? You know what I mean? And the success that brought them, it just speaks volumes. So he's a big target because he's a victim of his own success, but there's no denying how many people picked up sticks and joined a band after listening to Metallica's albums. You know what I mean?
So Kev, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. If anybody's wanting to find out more about the band, about any up-and-coming gigs, any new releases, any merchandise that they can purchase, you guys are on social media, Facebook, Instagram, all those sort of things. They can find you out. Yeah. You're on Bandcamp, all these different places. All they need to do is type your name into Google and you guys will come up. But I do wish you all the success in the future, and we'll catch up at some point down the line, I'm sure.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. It was great.
Cheers, pal.